Why does no one pay heed to my warning? The entire human race will perish from the earth. Where the monster Ghidorah passes, only flaming ruins are left.
It'd be a bad situation if that creature came here to Earth.
It's worse. Because he's arrived.
What's going on, people? LP2000, right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summer Kaiju, and I'm your host, Leslie P. Chambers, and today we're taking a look at another great X Plus Outstanding Excellent Stellar figure release. Yes, a figure of a monster, one of my most favorite monsters of all time in the Godzilla film franchise. Yes, my favorite villain of all time in the Godzilla film franchise. Once again, such an outstanding stellar release right here from X Plus. And today we're taking a look at the X Plus 25cm standard edition of the 1964 King Ghidorah. Yes, from his iconic debut film, the 1964 classic Godzilla Kaiju epic film, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, or Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And as you can see, I have the beautiful figure here. Yes. Let's just focus on him. You know what I mean? Of course, we're going to get into the box in a few seconds, but let's just focus on this awesome figure. Yes. Just in all his space demonish golden glory. Yes, S Plus has done a wonderful job with this figure. You're gonna hear that a lot during the course of this video. And here's a picture of the box. You know, it's just a plain cardboard box with a stunning artwork. You know, even though it lacks a lot of color in the artwork, or just color really. You know, it's just a black color of King. You know, it has King Ghidorah in the front. You know, Toho Large Monster Series in Japanese text, 1964 King Ghidorah, X Plus Garage Toy in the upper left hand corner. The 65-year Shin Godzilla logo on the upper right hand corner. That's basically it with the box. I really do enjoy this box, you know, especially the artwork, you know, which has a picture of the stunning figure of King Ghidorah, a very menacing look of the figure on the front cover of the box. So that's it with the box, you know. So let's get out of the box. Let's get into this epic figure. Yes. Once again, I make no bones about the fact that King Ghidorah is my most favorite Godzilla villain of all time. And King Ghidorah 1964 in particular is my favorite version of King Ghidorah. Now, as far as King Ghidorah X Plus is concerned, let's just say it has not been the best a lot of times when it comes to King Ghidorah, especially the Showa one when it comes to X Plus. First and foremost, the first time that X Plus did a vinyl version of King Ghidorah was the 1968 version from Destroy All Monsters. We already know about the situation, you know, the shipping situation involving Ami Ami, which I have detailed in prior couple videos. We already know about that. So for the longest time, you know, S Plus has been given not so sterling recommendations, I guess, from a lot of kaiju fans when it comes to King Ghidorah. You know, especially the Showa one after that fiasco involving the 1968 original King Ghidorah back in 2014/2015. So it took some years before they decided to go back to another Showa version of King Ghidorah. You know, since then, they have, you know, produced a Death King Ghidorah. They have produced a GMK King Ghidorah and a Kaiju Ghidorah. But after what happened in 2014 with the original 1968 King Ghidorah, we didn't see any kind of other vinyl version of King Ghidorah aside from the 1968 Diamond reissue version. They came forth with the 1968 flying version, which I have a video of. It's in the archives of the channel, which was a bold risk move for S Plus to do, because King Ghidorah, you know, at this point, is the biggest figure that they have made for like a flying version. And with King Ghidorah being so delicate, a lot of folks weren't really feeling the idea of them doing a flying version of King Ghidorah. But let me just say this. I got the figure late last year, 2018, and knock on wood, it has not had any problems. It has not fallen off. It has not been damaged. So kudos to S Plus for making that happen. And this marks the third time that S Plus has done a vinyl version of King Ghidorah. And I have to say, this is my favorite version. Out of all the King Ghidorahs I have in my collection, this is by far my most favorite one. Now, it's not the first time that S Plus has done a 1964 King Ghidorah. Sort of. A subsidiary company from S Plus called S Plus USA made a resin version of the 1964 King Ghidorah. It came with a little base that you could put underneath King Ghidorah. They had like a damaged car embedded into the base, and it was a really just a countryside type of base, you know. So S Plus USA made King Ghidorah 1964. It made 1989 Godzilla. It made a 1955 Anguirus and Godzilla 1955. It also made a 1964 Mothra, and they were all resin pieces. And even though they look cool, they weren't as detailed as the pieces that S Plus makes today. But for the time, because I forgot what year they came out, it was a while ago. I'll probably say like 5 or 6 years, something like that. But for the time, they were really good, great pieces to have, you know. And as far as me being a King Ghidorah fan, I wanted to get that version because at the time, there was only 1964 King Ghidorah that was that detailed that I get my hands on until now. Now, fast forward to 2018, and I'm going to reference another interview that Kyle Yount, yes, you know who Kyle Yount is, you know, great guy, you know him, you love him. The guy that runs basically the best podcast dedicated to Godzilla and all his rubber-suited foes, the Kaiju Cast. Yes, not arguably, the best podcast dedicated to Godzilla, the Kaiju Cast. And Kyle Yount went to Japan early last year on a work trip, and he got an interview with Gio Komodo. You know who Gio Komodo is? Basically the front man for S Plus, the guy that decides what monsters that they're going to make. And he took some questions from a lot of us members in the S Plus Collectors Facebook group on Facebook, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to Japan, and I may have a opportunity to hook up with G. So if you have any questions that you want me to throw his way, send them to me, and I make sure that he gets them." And during the course of the interview, which is on the Kaiju Cast YouTube channel right now, which is a great interview, I highly suggest you go back and watch it. It was referenced during the course of the video. It kind of came out of nowhere because it wasn't asked and in particularly or asked specifically. But Mr. Gio Komodo did let it be known that they were working on a new sculpt of King Ghidorah, and they were going to bring forth the 1964 version, and they were going to retool it from the 1968 version. So fast forward, I want to say Super Festival 1970, not 1979, but Super Festival 79 in December, late December last year. That was basically the King Ghidorah show. You know what I mean? Now we did see unpainted prototype pictures of this figure that will pop up at these model exhibition shows in Japan. You know, this year, as well as a painted version this year, and blah blah blah. But that show in particular, Super Festival 79 in December of 2018, was basically the King Ghidorah show. Because they not only showcased this, they showcased what the Rick version of this figure is, basically. And basically the Rick version of this figure is King Ghidorah, the same sculpt as this figure right here, but painted in a red, white, and blue paint scheme, which is what the original version of King Ghidorah was going to look like. Before they started filming the film back in 1964. It's really a long backstory involving that, and I highly suggest you go to Screon.com, run by my great friend John Bumpus, and he has an article detailing the entire history of King Ghidorah's original look with the red, white, and blue. He has an article dedicated to that, why it was like that, why it was going to be like that, why they changed it from the red, white, and blue to the gold. So check out that article. So they showcase this version of King Ghidorah, the Rick version of King Ghidorah 64 with the red, white, and blue. And they also tease, which is now a reality now, they're going to be making a 1991 Mecha King Ghidorah from Godzilla's King Ghidorah 1991. So that show in particular was basically the King Ghidorah show. And around that time, you know, they started showcasing trailers of Godzilla King of the Monsters, which will be out tomorrow at the time of this recording. It's May 30th right now. We are finally here to the new Godzilla King of the Monsters movie, and they were showcasing trailers around the time of the movie, and they showcased King Ghidorah more. And so that was a popular time, at least a really fun time if you were a King Ghidorah fan. And so fast forward to, like, say February, it got announced for pre-order, and it just got released, I want to say mid-May, like May 16th or May 19th, something like that. Now the standards got released first. The Ricks, from what I understand, did not get released until like a week later, which would have been like maybe May 28th or something like that. So we have gotten our standard King Ghidorahs like for the past like week and a half, while the Ricks should be on their way to the United States from Japan as we speak right now. But I opted to go and get the standard because, you know, even though the Rick features, or at least the Rick colors on the Rick King Ghidorah did look cool, I just prefer, you know, having King Ghidorah look how he looked, you know, throughout all his films, you know, with the gold paint scheme or whatever. Not trying to knock the Rick, but with me being such a huge King Ghidorah fan, I just love seeing him how he always looked with the iconic golden paint scheme. Now, there are exceptions that I don't mind seeing an alternate paint scheme of a figure, or at least of a monster, like Varan, for example. You know, Varan was in, the original film was in black and white, but I have the brown version of Varan, you know, Favorite Sculptors line version, as well as the 25 centimeter crawling version, and it's more of a brown paint scheme, which I don't mind that. Or the alternate painted GMK with the dark paint scheme and the blue dorsal plates, you know, whatever. So there are some exceptions in my case that I don't mind, you know, having an alternate painted figure of a monster that's not truly accurate with the film. But as far as like King Ghidorah, I had to have him in his golden paint scheme. And so that's basically the backstory involving this figure and how I got my hands on it, you know. And once again, this is such a great piece. And with me being such a huge King Ghidorah fan, to me, this is King Ghidorah. This is the true version, and in my opinion, the best version of King Ghidorah. And honestly, for the remainder of this video, I'm just going to refer to him as Monster Zero, because he has that Monster Zero look. Because, you know, of course, you know, in 1964, they came forth with Ghidorah 3 the Monster, and they brought him back in 1965's Monster Zero, or Invasion of the Astro Monster, or Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. Now, as far as the suit itself, it is pretty much the same suit from 64. According to great Kaiju historian August Ragoni, he did say that they did make some repairs to the suit, because obviously, with it going through the rigorous fight scene in Ghidorah 3 the Monster, obviously it didn't have the pristine condition look to it going into Monster Zero. So of course they did some stuff to it to make the to keep the upkeep on the suit, to make it look, you know, better, or at least make it look how it originally was. I think the only thing they really did with this suit, they kind of like extended the necks a little bit, and I think they probably repaired some damaged scales to it. But by and large, he looks exactly the same in 65 as he did in 64. You know, it's not too many noticeable differences. It's not like, you know, Mechagodzilla 74 and 75, where, you know, hardcore fans can tell the difference between the two suits. But with Ghidorah, or King Ghidorah, I should say, you know, he looks pretty much the same, in my opinion, from 64 and 65. And because I already had the 1968 King Ghidorah from Destroy All Monsters, just to give some versatility here, I'm going to refer to this figure as Monster Zero. Because I actually do like that name. I actually do love that name. It's like a great alternate moniker of King Ghidorah, Monster Zero. No different than, you know, the Millennium Mechagodzilla. His nickname is Kiryu. You know what I mean? Or Godzilla himself, you know, Monster 01. You know, just cool alternate nicknames for, like I said, for the remainder of this video, for the remainder of this review, I'm going to refer to this figure as Monster Zero. So if you OCD about that, I'm sorry, get over it. But that's how I'm going to do things around here. And once again, this is a true version of King Ghidorah. The best version of King Ghidorah, hands down, throughout his many incarnations. This, to me, is the best version. No, not the Heisei futuristic mechanical upgraded version. Even though that version is cool. No, not that one. And no, not a guardian monster from GMK that can breathe underwater and that has to be brought back to life like 3 or 4 times. And no, not a 4-legged Kaiser version of Ghidorah that, you know, gets beat down within like, you know, 2 minutes, you know, whatever. Seriously? We're not even going to acknowledge the spaghetti noodle anime version. You know, this right here is the best King Ghidorah in my opinion. Now, I will have a slideshow comparison between this version of King Ghidorah 64 as well as the 1968 version. And even though there are similarities, strikingly great similarities between the two figures, I think there's enough of a difference that may warrant for you to dip on this release or go into this release. Cause I've seen a lot of collectors really didn't want to go after this version of Monster Zero because it is very similar to the 1968 version. But I will do a slideshow showcase detailing the differences as well as the similarities between the two figures. But me being a huge King Ghidorah fan, like I mentioned many times over just now, this was a no-brainer for me. You know, even though it is, like I said, very similar to the 68 version, there's enough of a difference here where I wanted to go after this version of King Ghidorah or Monster Zero. So I'll provide some inserts as I go along here, but basically it speaks for itself. You know, just a great iconic version of Monster Zero. Before we get into the slideshow with the other King Ghidorah, right off the bat, the difference right here that I've seen, the position on his wings are different, where he's more spaced out. The wings are more spaced out and wider, which gives him, unfortunately, it gives him more of, he requires more shelf space to house this thing, honestly, because his wings are further spaced out, more wider, whereas the 68 version, his wings are more upward, you know. The position on his necks, like the sculpts on his necks are different. And far as like, you know, paint job, it has more of a brighter shade of gold all over his body. And the manes on the back of his neck are different, where they're more, even though they're brown, a little bit darker, it has some gold highlights on the manes to give him more of a lighter look. Whereas the 68 versions were more so darker manes on the back of his necks. But aside from the wings, the paint job on the overall figure, the position of his necks, as well as the color on the back of his manes, those are basically the biggest differences between the two versions of the monster. But with this monster in particular, at least with this figure in particular, he just has that look from the original 1964 movie as well as Monster Zero. And nothing against the 68 version, because I love that version of King Ghidorah. I really do. For the longest time, he was my favorite version of King Ghidorah as far as like collectibles. And I've used that figure so much in setups, you know, whether it's Monster Zero, Destroy All Monsters, Ghidorah 3-Headed Monster, Godzilla vs. Gigan. Even I tried a few setups with the Sakai 91, you know, to recreate Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah 1991. But with this figure in particular right here, he just has that look from Monster Zero. He just has that majestic, just iconic, just look. That space demon look from Monster Zero. Nothing against the 68 King Ghidorah, but even though he looked good in Destroy All Monsters, the suit didn't really look the same. Even though I have read that some folks believe that it's actually the same suit from Monster Zero, I don't see it. I'm sorry. He looks a little bit slimmer, a little bit. The wings are a little bit different in Destroy All Monsters. I don't think it's the same suit. Maybe it's modified from the same suit, but I don't think it's the same suit. I don't think it's the same suit like the transition from 64 to 65. You know what I mean? I think it was a brand new suit for 68. And he just, even though he looks good, this one looks a little bit better. He looks a whole lot better. At least what I'm looking for when it comes to King Ghidorah, or in this case, Monster Zero. You know, once again, this figure speaks for itself. Just a great version of Monster Zero. Man, you know, like I said, it speaks for itself. I've detailed King Ghidorah numerous times in the past with various other videos. So the sculpt here, the paint job, it just is an amazing interpretation of Monster Zero or King Ghidorah. You know, like I said, with the placement of his wings, the sculpts on his neck, and his heads, you know, he just has that menacing look, you know, that we all come to know and love about the original King Ghidorah. Like I said, the best version of King Ghidorah, you know, the space planet destroying demon, you know, throughout his various incarnations. You know, this is my favorite one, obviously. Nothing against the Dorat origin version from 91, or the Mecha King Ghidorah upgrade, or the Guardian Monster one, or the Kaiser Ghidorah one. I'm not even going to talk about the anime because I ain't trying to make myself mad on my own video. But yeah, this is amazing. This is such an amazing piece, and I highly recommend this piece. Kind of like how I did in my Flying King Ghidorah video. I'm gonna echo the same sentiment here. That if you have the extra money, and if you're a King Ghidorah fan, go for it. I can understand. Go for it. But if you already have the 68 version and you don't have the money for it, or even if you do have the money and you don't feel that the differences are enough to double dip in a way on this release, I can understand that too. But once again, this figure is great for these setups. You know, great for like I said, the Ghidorah 3-Headed Monster setup or Monster Zero setup. You know what I mean? Once again, like I said, the reason why I got this figure, because for one, this is my favorite version of King Ghidorah, hands down. I love this figure to death. I love this design the best to death. Such a great figure. And in addition to that, we're also getting another figure from this movie in I want to say in July, where they're coming forward with a 1964 B suit, 25 centimeter of Godzilla, you know, to put with this figure, along with the 25 centimeter Rodan 1964, and then maybe add a 25 centimeter Mothra larva from the Destroy All Monsters Mothra and Manda set. And boom, you have yourself the perfect setup to Ghidorah the 3-Headed Monster. But you'll see that in size comparisons in a few seconds. But aside from that, this is such a great figure. I'm glad I got it. It didn't have any issues with the shipping. Nothing came in broken or anything like that. Nothing that the 68 original version of King Ghidorah had back in 2014/2015. Solid release, solid shipping. It looks awesome. Like I said, it's just the best version of King Ghidorah that X Plus has ever done, in my opinion. And for the longest time, the Flying King Ghidorah was my favorite version of King Ghidorah in my collection. But I have to say, this one is now my favorite. Monster Zero. Yes. Monster Zero is now my favorite, slash King Ghidorah 1964, the 25 centimeter standard version. So that's pretty much it, you know, with the detail and the differences between 68 and this version of King Ghidorah or Monster Zero. But like I said, you'll see more so of that in the 64/68 slideshow comparisons between the two monsters, and that'll be coming up real soon. But before we get to that, I want to do at least two size comparisons, a couple size comparisons. Then we go into the 68/64 slideshow comparison, and then we'll wrap up this review with my final thoughts of King Ghidorah. And y'all know, like I said, this is my favorite version of King Ghidorah or Monster Zero. And Monster Zero/King Ghidorah is my favorite villain of all time in the Godzilla film franchise. And I think I went into it in a prior couple videos why that is. But I'll go into further detail about why I love King Ghidorah and why I look to him as my favorite villain of all time when it comes to Godzilla. And yes, Godzilla has had some great villains over the years. You know, whether it's the Showa Mechagodzilla, Gigan, Hedra, Baalante, or Kiryu, or even the Mutos. I mean, I'm sure some people out there may view the Mutos as like their favorite Godzilla adversaries. Godzilla, like I said, has had great villains to oppose him over the years. But through it all, King Ghidorah has always been my favorite, and I'll talk about why that is during the later commentary portion of the video. But yes, this is such a great figure. Once again, thank you S Plus for making this happen. You know, it's kind of been a long time coming for this guy, and kind of appropriate that he would be dropping right now at the time of Godzilla King of the Monsters coming out in less than a day, really, at the time of this recording. And King Ghidorah is going to be a huge part of that film, for what I understand. So the timing cannot be perfect. That, you know, the latest version of King Ghidorah is coming out in theaters, and now we get our hands on a sterling, awesome rendition of the original version of that awesome monster of King Ghidorah / Monster Zero. Alright, so let's bring forth the 25 centimeter from X Plus 1964 Godzilla, Rodan in the 1968 Martha Larva to pair with this King Ghidorah. Let's see how that setup looks between the four iconic monsters from this awesome film. And then we'll go into a Monster Zero setup. Then we'll go into the 64/68 slideshow, and then we'll wrap up this review with my thoughts of King Ghidorah itself as a kaiju and why he's my favorite. So let's go into the first size comparison right now. Okay, folks, this is the first size comparison, and alongside the Man in the Hour, yes, the 25 centimeter 1964 standard edition of King Ghidorah / Monster Zero. I have the 25 centimeter Martha Larva 1968 that came with the Destroy All Monsters Volume 1 set of the Martha Larva and Manda. In the air, I have the 25 centimeter Rodan 1964. And I have, of course, yes, the King of the Monsters himself, the 25 centimeter Godzilla 1964. And yes, these four comprise the awesome and epic monster lineup from Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, and as you can see, they look so awesome together. Now, if you OCD, I know some folks out there probably will be like, that's not the same Martha Larva from the film. And true, you know, it's a different year, but he still, or she does, Martha at least, has the same type of look from the 64 Martha. They were both a dark shade of brown like this. They both had red eyes. So until X Plus gives us a proper 1964 Larva, this will provide a great stand-in. I don't see the Martha Larva being a top priority on X Plus's list right now. So until that happens, this is the best thing for you, and this is like a great stand-in for you. As far as Rodan, I have him perched on top of my Fire Rodan stand. He won't be there. He won't be there forever, but he's good for, like, you know, still shots like this or short videos like this. But having him perched up in the air looks really good. And the way King Ghidorah's necks are positioned, you can actually perch Rodan on the top of on the back of King Ghidorah's heads, you know. And King Ghidorah is durable enough where Rodan can actually be positioned there, you know. I don't suggest you do that long term because it may cause King Ghidorah to come crashing down at some point. But for momentary shots or videos, it actually looks good, you know, especially to recreate that part in the movie where Rodan flies on top of King Ghidorah's heads to hold him, you know, down from the sky while Godzilla attacks from the front. Looks really good. And of course, we have the 25 centimeter Godzilla 1964. Of course, this is based off his appearance in the best Godzilla film of all time, mind you, Mothra vs. Godzilla. But he's a great stand-in too until we do get that 64B 25cm Godzilla figure from X Plus in July. So until that happens, this is a great setup. This is a great setup to one of the best Godzilla films, in my opinion, out there, especially of all time, and especially one of my most favorites. It falls in on my list at number 4 as my 4th most favorite Godzilla film of all time. Seeing these iconic monsters together, especially in battle figure form, is awesome, especially with the new film looming above us right now, and we know all these monsters, at least an updated, revamped versions of these monsters, are going to be in the film, especially, you know, with Rodan, King Ghidorah, and Mothra being a part of the film, you know, and being part of an American Kaiju film for the first time. I'm really excited about it. And once again, this film in particular features my most favorite versions of Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. They all come from the same year of 1964. Even the adult version of Mothra, that's my favorite version of Mothra. So this film features my favorite suit of Godzilla, my favorite suit and favorite version of Rodan, my favorite version of King Ghidorah as well as the suit, and as well as my favorite version of Mothra. And once again, this setup is awesome. This setup speaks for itself. And this is one of the main reasons why I got this figure of King Ghidorah. Nothing against the 68 version, but this King Ghidorah looks a little bit better with these monsters all around him like this, to recreate that awesome battle from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And let's go into the next film with the next size comparison. So let me exchange a couple of monsters and put one more in here and all that good stuff. Let's recreate the setup of the following film, Invasion of Astro Monster, also known as Monster Zero, also known as Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. And let's go to that size comparison right now. Okay, folks, this is the next size comparison, and yes, another great setup. Yes, like I mentioned earlier, all you have to do is just alternate the Godzillas, take out the Mothra, insert this new Godzilla as well as the Planet X controller, and you have the perfect setup, in my opinion, to the next film in the series, Invasion of Astro Monster, Monster Zero, or better yet, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. And as you can see, they look well together. As I mentioned earlier, you can actually, like I said, perch Rodan on top of King Ghidorah's heads or the back of his necks like this, and it makes for a great shot. It really does. It makes for a great, awesome shot with Rodan in the back, basically in the sky on top of King Ghidorah while Godzilla is battling from the front. And of course, you have the little mini controller, Planet X alien right there, basically supervising or at least orchestrating the attack on Earth involving these 3 iconic monsters. And once again, they look well together, and I can't wait to get the that 25cm 64B Godzilla figure. I think it's going to be along the same quality as the 65 version right here, which is an awesome figure. You know what I mean? So I can't wait for that. But once again, it just proves that this King Ghidorah, even though the 68 version, like I said, is a great version of the figure, of the monster, I should say. But this monster right here, this version of King Ghidorah, this figure of King Ghidorah, this is Monster Zero. This is Monster Zero. All the Monster Zeros, as a matter of fact. Monster Zero, Monster Zero 1, as well as Monster Zero 2. And once again, this represents such a great moment in the Showa period, you know. And this was really one of the probably a turning point, as well as the previous film. You know, the previous film was a turning point in the Godzilla series too. But this one took a little step further with the whole alien invasion storyline, using monsters to subjugate the world and blah blah blah. And probably just like the best storyline involving this is the best movie using that storyline. Of course, it would get used multiple times in the Showa period, you know, with the Destroy All Monsters, with Godzilla vs. Gigan, with the Mecha Godzilla films from the Showa period. But I have to say, this one right here, this movie right here, use it the best, use that storyline the best, and this really is an awesome setup, and also is a testament to how great Toho was back in the day, you know, because these basically are the same monsters from the previous film, with the exception of Mothra. You know, it just proves that you can put the same monsters in a different film, but yet present them in a different way, put them in a different story, and it would still be awesome. It would still be good. that was so great about Godzilla as well as the Showa period, you know, whatever. Even though they would reuse the same monsters or reuse the same type of storylines, they would modify them and tweak them to, even though they're the same, but make them stand out a little bit more by being different with the way they handled the characters, with the way they handled the stories, blah blah blah. And this is a testament of how great that was, especially between these two King Ghidorah films. You know, how Ghidorah 3 the Monster was so great, and Monster Zero was so great. Even though they featured the same monsters, they did something different between the two films that made them stand out. As far as like the figures themselves, this once again is a great setup. Makes me want to watch the movie right now. But I have to finish this video so we can get up out of here. So once again, the first setup involving the 1964 Godzilla 25 centimeter, as well as the 1968 25 centimeter Monster Larva, as well as here the 25 centimeter Godzilla 1965. You know, once again, you can alternate between these two setups and have a great time with either one. As you can see, Monster Zero right there. Monster Zero will look great with either one. Why don't you pop down in the comment section and tell me which one do you find to be the best looking, and which one is your favorite? Do you like the Ghidorah 3 the Monster setup, or do you like the Monster Zero setup? I'd love to hear from you. So pop down in the comment section and let me know which setup do you find to be superior of the two. As well as the superior of the two, that's a great segue. I mentioned earlier that this version of Monster Zero is basically a retooled version of the King Ghidorah figure from 1968. Like I said, there are very great similarities, but there are some differences between the two monsters, at least between the two figures. So let's go to that right now. Let's see what the differences and similarities are between this version of King Ghidorah / Monster Zero, as well as the 1968 S plus 25 centimeter King Ghidorah, and then we'll wrap up this review with my thoughts of King Ghidorah and why he's my favorite Godzilla villain of all time. And then that'll be it. So let's go with the last comparison between the two King Ghidorahs, 1964 as well as 1968. Okay, folks, I'm back with my final thoughts of the X plus 25 centimeter standard edition of King Ghidorah / Monster Zero. Once again, 10 out of 10. This is such an awesome and excellent piece. Once again, one thing I want to stress here, like I mentioned in my Flying King Ghidorah 1968 video a few months ago, if you have the money for this, if you have the extra money, and if you're a King Ghidorah fan like myself, I would say go after this piece. But if you don't have the money, or even if you do have the money, like I mentioned earlier, if you already have the 1968 version, and once again, even though there are differences between the two figures, between the two monsters, there are some striking similarities between the two. And I can understand if you don't want to, if you don't feel the need to kind of double dip by going after this version of King Ghidorah / Monster Zero, if you already had the 68, I can understand that. But I think with this monster being so much enriched in Godzilla's history, it's not going to hurt to have multiple Ghidorahs in your collection, you know, especially if you're into setups like I am. You know, once again, you can use this guy for the 64/65 setups and use the 68 version for the Destroy All Monster setups and so on. The way I am going to do my Ghidorahs in my collection, I'm going to fluctuate between Monster Zero and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster with this version of King Ghidorah / Monster Zero. The 68 version is going to be for my Destroy All Monster setup. Or if this King Ghidorah, let's say I use this King Ghidorah the 64 for the Monster Zero setup, then I use the 68 for the Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster setup, right? And my Flying King Ghidorah that you probably see in the background here, I'm using that as for my Godzilla vs. Gigan setup. You know, with Godzilla, Gigan, and Anguirus, and have King Ghidorah flying in the background. So there's so many things that you can do involving this King Ghidorah, and I can see the argument of why you want or you may not want to get this piece. But in my opinion, you really should go after this piece. Oh, also one thing that I forgot to mention when it comes to the detail of this guy. One thing that S Plus has done, in particular, they have actually, as far as his horns here, because that has been like one of the issues involving this figure. Because he's so delicate, you know. When the first King Ghidorah came out, the 68 version back in 2014, and, you know, I might as well throw the S Plus USA Resin 64 in there too. One of the biggest problems with this version of King Ghidorah is because he's so delicate, his horns here, the horns on his head, you know, the two big horns and the one middle horn in the on top of his head, the middle of his forehead, those were actually made of plastic, I guess ABS plastic or whatever, but they were very brittle and they would be very easy. It would be very easy to snap them off. You know, they would succumb to being broken a lot of times. But actually, this version of King Ghidorah, as well as the Flying version, S Plus actually made the horns into soft vinyl, so you don't have to worry about them actually snapping off. Now, I don't suggest you bend them a lot, but they are bendable, so they're not, you know, prone to get broken or snapped off, which is good. And that shows me that S Plus actually was learning from their situation with the first King Ghidorah back in 2014. And ever since then, they have done such a great job with their King Ghidorah products that they have brought out to us, whether it's the 68 version, the Flying one, which was a bold risk, like I mentioned earlier, Death Ghidorah, the GMK King Ghidorah, the Kaiju Ghidorah, and now this version of King Ghidorah. They have learned from their mistakes over the years from the original King Ghidorah Showa vinyl release, and I'm glad that they actually stepped their game up and they actually are paying more attention to the quality of their figures, especially King Ghidorah, the shipping process involved with a figure like this. So it's nice that S Plus has actually come around and made some improvements and made some drastic changes to ensure that not only will the figure arrive safely to the United States, but it'll still stand up throughout the test of time, you know. So kudos to S Plus for making that happen, and kudos for making such improvements in the way they have made King Ghidorah, shipped him, and all that good stuff. Now, don't want to keep y'all here too much longer because I want to talk about why is he my favorite villain out of the Godzilla film franchise. And once again, there's so many great villains to choose from in this genre. You know, not just from Godzilla. You know, you have Gamera. You know, you have the great Gauss. You know, you have Legion. You know, you have Iris, as far as Godzilla himself. You know, you have Gigan, Hedra, Mecha Godzilla. Such great villains throughout the years. And the reason why King Ghidorah is my favorite, honestly, and it took me a while to really come to this realization, but I just pretty much enjoyed every single film that he has been involved in. Basically, this film, or at least his debut in 1964, that got me from day one. Ever since that day, ever since I first saw this movie for the first time, I've always been a King Ghidorah fan. And what's so cool about King Ghidorah that a lot of people maybe don't want to give him credit for or don't really think about, in a way, he's kind of like an anti-Godzilla. And what I mean by that is he, like Godzilla, has been through many characterizations. You know, whether he's, like I said, you know, he's an unstoppable space demon, planet-destroying monster in his debut film, whether he's the pawn of an alien race to destroy the world, like in Monster Zero and Destroy All Monsters, whether he's an awesome sidekick to Gigan, whether he beats down Zone Fighter, whether he's brought back as a futuristic mecha, whether he's a guardian monster, whether he's a Kaiser, or now in his upcoming movie apparently, he's going to be a rival alpha to Godzilla. Pretty much every characterization that they put him in, I have thoroughly enjoyed. Like Godzilla, because Godzilla has not only played the serious, demon destructive Godzilla, he has also been a father figure. He has also been a superhero. He has also been an anti-hero. He has gone through a lot of characterizations too. And King Ghidorah kind of has done the same thing in a lot of ways. Now, he doesn't have as many films as Godzilla, but throughout his tenure as a kaiju and as a monster, he has gone through so many different character arcs. And I pretty much enjoyed every single one of them, and he has pulled them off. Even though there are some I'm not too big of a fan of, like the anime, whatever. I'm not too big of a fan of his origin in the 1991 movie. But through it all, whether his look, his performance, whatever he does in all of his films, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. He has pulled it off. He has wore so many different hats and gone through so many different characterizations. Like Godzilla, that's why he's my favorite villain. Kind of like Godzilla. Godzilla, like I said, has gone through many different characterizations. And through it all, I have loved him through and through. And like Godzilla, I view the same way when it comes to King Ghidorah. But I have to say, my favorite version, kind of like Godzilla, my favorite version of Godzilla is, of course, the villain, from Marvel vs. Godzilla, King Kong vs. Godzilla, GMK, 1984, blah, blah, blah. I like him as the villain. I like him as the antagonist. And like Godzilla, to me, my favorite version, which in my opinion is the best version, is his debut film. He's not controlled by an alien race. He's not controlled by futuristic people. He is just a frenzy, just unstoppable, wild, savage, brutal, dangerous beast that comes down from space to destroy the world. Of course, he destroyed Venus, or in the Japanese version, he destroyed Venus. That's kind of given his backstory somewhat. It's kind of glossed over. It doesn't really go into a lot of detail with his backstory, but apparently he destroyed Venus, and he has a reputation of destroying planets and civilizations. But he decided to come to Earth, and unfortunately for him, he ran into three roadblocks, but which led to a great fight scene, But aside from that, that's the reason why I love King Ghidorah, and that's why I'm so looking forward to see how they will deal with him in the upcoming movie, which I will see in a couple days at the time of this recording. So with all that being said, that's why I love King Ghidorah, and once again, this is why I love this figure, and that's why I highly recommend it. So that's why I suggest, if you have the money for it, and if you have the desire to go after this King Ghidorah, whether you have the 68 version or not, either way, you can't go wrong with this figure, whether it's the standard version or the RIC version of the 1964 25cm King Ghidorah from X Plus. So that pretty much concludes my review of the X Plus 25cm standard edition of King Ghidorah / Monster Zero. Yes, based off his iconic appearance in the awesome Godzilla Kaiju flick from 1964. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, or Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. If you have any questions, holler me down in the comment section. Or hit me up on Facebook via Elizabeth Chambers. We'll definitely go from there. Yes, once again, a great figure. Yes, it is. And like I said earlier, and I can't stress this enough, once again, he is very similar to the 68 version, as you've seen and as you hear me talked about for the past 40 minutes. He is very similar, but to me, there's enough of a difference to warrant an investment in this guy, especially if you're a King Ghidorah fan, and especially if you're into setups like I am. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with this figure. It didn't come in broken. The sculpt is amazing. The paint job is a little bit better than the 68 version. I like the placement of his wings. I like the placement of his heads and his necks. Once again, he just has that look from 64 and Monster Zero, and that's the main reason why I went after this guy, because this is my favorite version of King Ghidorah, and as it stands right now, this is my favorite figure of King Ghidorah in my collection, followed closely by the flying version, But speaking of King Ghidorah, we're not done yet. As I mentioned earlier, X Plus will be releasing the 1991 Mecha King Ghidorah at some point, and you gotta know that they're probably going to release the regular version of King Ghidorah 1991. Whether they will release the 2019 version remains to be seen, but I'm getting cramped for space Because as it stands right now, I have 7 versions of King Ghidorah. 7. Good God Almighty. 268s, 264s, GMK, Kaiju Ghidorah, and Death Ghidorah, and of course I'm getting the Mecha King Ghidorah. So I'm going to have 8 when it's all said and done. And if they make a 2019, more likely I will go after that one. So I'm going to have 9 King Ghidorahs. But you know what? You can't blame me because I'm a huge King Ghidorah fan. And that's supposed to have done right by their versions of the various King Ghidorahs over the years. And I'm looking forward to see what they will have in the future with other King Ghidorahs. But for the time being, this guy's the king. This guy's the man. Of course, the X plus 25 centimeter King Ghidorah 1964. Better yet, the 25 centimeter Monster Zero. Alright? So I thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on this figure move review. Alright? Y'all take it easy.